Peace. Happy now. Now is the vibrate. We're not going too far in the future. We're not going too far in the past. Right now. Right now. I want to speak on a little information. Matter of fact, I done touched on this in the past, but basically about like the ancient gods and deities, and like some of them who names stood for the black one or the black dot, or even burnt face, what I'm saying, as Zeus, name translated to Ethiops, matter of fact, which you see how closely related to Ethiopia, but translated to Ethiops, which mean burnt face. As a matter of fact, and then Zeus' father was Kronos or Saturn. So, what does that make his father, especially with the one drop rule? But that's just to begin. But I want to just kind of brush on this information, because again, this is one of the injustices, in essence, that is going on that will bring everything back to balance, you know what I'm saying, on all levels, you know what I'm saying? Because I always tell people, this is not trying to make melanated people or, black people, which melanated, it's a lot of people that's melanated. So it's almost, but anyway, this is not to give melanated people no uppity position or to make themselves feel higher than the next, but it's to gain and gather up all the information that that was stolen from us, taken away from us, suppressed and still suppressed to this day. You got all these little movies and occultist type of little things that throw the information somewhat in your face, but without really giving it to you. But I just want to step a little bit into that information. And matter of fact, cause too, another thing, what I thought about is like getting into this information because of the the oppression of melanated people across the world, and I like to use the word melanated and not black. One, because black, from the oppressor, what I'm saying, the terminology black in English terms has been used to, be a derogatory situation on all levels, dark black eyes, be scared, this or that. Matter of fact, down to them even making horror movies, where they make the darkness scary, you know what I'm saying? Like all, levels. So that's why I like saying melanated. Also why I like saying melanated, because you have melanated people on all levels, down to, I always say, with the one drop rule, you got some people with light skin pigmentations that still have melanin. I mean, down to some people who don't have serious albinoism, but most cases, albino people, born of black, of a melanated person, you know what I'm saying, but still is that extension. But long story short, too, what I was gonna get into before I got off the subject was not seeing getting away from race and saying black and African American, this and that, because when you say melanated, not only that breaks down the construct that the oppressors and all the people who've been trying to tear us apart, been trying to implement, that saying melanated tears that apart. And also, when you really look at it, it is a melanated situation, not a black people type of thing. Because when you think about it, say for instance, 'cause when you think of the terminology of black people or African American, you mostly think, black people are just, in America, and they are Americans, you know what I'm saying? I mean, and what's funny, even though Africans are black people, sometimes, it's like when we think of the terminology, either think of like, more of a American, and reason why, again, I say melanated, because, you got people that's in the Dominican Republic, people in South America, people in Australia, people in Europe, in Greece, people in Asia, you know what I'm saying, that are melanated in some just as dark as what we call black people in America or Africa, you know what I'm saying? In which you have some melanated people from some of these places like Africa who could be just as light as the next and still have that melanin power. So it's so many levels to it. It's not no for lack of a better word, no black or white situation. Like, is in between areas dealing with all that, and it all depends on the variations of information and the situation that's going on. But again, using the word melanated because there are melanated people everywhere, and I realized how much the more I did research, how much you know melanated people are being oppressed on all levels. Like it's not just no oppressing melanated people, but it's the mind frame that's another thing. Like with the European oppressor mind frame, it's not just it's not just a person or people's. It's an actual mind frame also because when I think about societies like India with the caste system, where the darker Indians are considered undesirables, you got Native Americans are what they call Indians, but I don't like to use that word. Dealing with the Native Americans, but you got the Native Americans who are basically black people, melanated people, but they kind of like you know basically bred them to be lighter until they only allow for the brighter representations to be seen on TV and movies and things of this nature. Same thing with Greece. Like Greece still have like the mulatto melanated people from back in the day because that was really who that was. Even when when it was thought to be, so say, white people, that was basically mulatto people. But all these different places, you know what I'm saying, just finding some type of way to oppress you know the darker melanated peoples. And with that being said, I just wanted to bring up some information, as far as just dealing with with gods and ancient information to just I gotta say, to refresh everybody's memory, you know what I'm saying, or to you know freshen somebody's memory, where they haven't come across this information before. But basically I want to get in like how you know Krishna, name stands for the black one. Zeus names translates to Ethiops or Ethiops, which stands for burnt face, you know what I'm saying? And also you see where the Ethiopian, you know what I'm saying, too, because Kush or Ethiopia is one of the most ancient civilizations, and also ancient Ethiopia or Kush is what was one of the biggest empires at one time, and also trickled into what was known as the as the Hindu Indus Kush, or the where the Indian, what we call the Asian Indians, you know what I'm saying, stay right now. That's basically extension of Ethiopians, or basically, Ethiopian descendants. As a matter of fact, because some of the ancient gods of India was depicted with ancient Ethiopian crowns. And then too, in a Hellenic tradition, you had Zeus. In some of like the little stories, he was said to like go visit Ethiopia and go visit them for banquets and stuff like that. So basically, they had peoples acknowledging and knowing that, all right, not only is it about a black one, a burnt face, or a black dot, because Osiris also stood for that too. But it's also about the ancient land of Ethiopia and Kush. And matter of fact, and I always tell people back to also showing how Rastafari, maybe isn't as crazy as a lot of people may think it, may have been, and always was kind of looked at as something like, oh, these herbs smoking, talking about Ethiopia type of. It's like there's a reason behind that, and two, you start to see how DNA moves through us, where reason why we, felt so close to Rastafari without nobody teaching it, because most of us got into Rastafari by ourselves. In most cases, we just kind of seen the dreads and seen the colors and seen Selassie and was like, Like, yeah, that's me. That's that was our DNA, and the ancestors talking to us through our DNA, because our ancestors also, when they transition, go back into our DNA on another level. The macrocosm, microcosm, because we are a universe too. Don't forget that. But speaking on so I spoke on Krishna, Zeus, and also I want to bring up the other god from, I think it's from the Mayan aspect. Yes, from the Mayan aspect, name Ishlilton, but it's basically Lxtliton, and basically that god stood for the black face. You know what I'm saying, or the black one. But all these different little guys correlate into, not only with the names, but also across different pantheons of different spiritual practices. You know what I'm saying, from the Yoruba to Hindu to just other spiritual practices. Like, say for instance, you had Ekchua, which is basically a war god from the Mayan aspect. He's a war god, and he protected travelers. Also, like a god dealing with the cacao bean. But you could see Ekchua is kind of like a correlation with Ogun from Yoruba, and also Ilegba, because also there was like they leave out for the three stones for the deity, for the god. And it reminds me of leaving out the three pennies, or the number three dealing with Ilegua also, but then the warlike energy from Ogun. So it's kind of like a mixture, because some gods, in essence, like how you could have, all right, how this god Ekchua is somewhat a mixture of Ogun and Ilegua, like different gods and different spiritual practices could also be a mixture. So say for instance, one god in Sekhmet, so say for instance Sekhmet, for example, could be a representation of Oya and Oshun, you know what I'm saying, and something else. Like, so it could be a representation of two gods, but in this spiritual practice, they just took these two guys and put them together because it was easier, or because of, whether the information came first or afterwards, or however they felt, but that's how you get a lot of these deities, and how they get passed down. And then you had Kash, which basically he helped with the hunter and gatherers. And you could see Kash, matter of fact, again from the Mayan pantheon of spirituality, and it deals with Kash could be seen as Ochose from Yoruba, you know what I'm saying? Because Kash also is known where he helped guides arrows to their target, and with Ochose, Ochose got the story of, shooting an arrow and it accidentally, think killing his mother or something like that. I can't recall the story fully right now, but it's something like that. So, you see the correlation of all these things. And two, why I'm bringing it up is these correlations, because they're all, representations of the same gods, in essence, of the same energies of consciousness, and also all time back to the same peoples, you know what I'm saying? Because my thing is, and you should never feel like by bringing up this information, if you feel like bringing up information on lost melanin knowledge that that basically is suppressed and hidden, if you feel some kind of way about that because you're around people that are racist and you feel uncomfortable because they're uncomfortable with that type of information being revealed, or you still kind of got like how can I say, like the slave mind frame is just still built into you to where you're scared to speak up on the truth, you know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, or you got like the what they like to call what's the syndrome where the kidnapped person fall in love with the kidnapper. I can't think of it, right? And I use that terminology a lot too. But basically, if you're scared to speak up on this information, then there's either internal problem, which internal problems turn into external problems, but internal problem are, again, the people you're around, have you feeling like I shouldn't speak upon this in front of them, which again, that's saying something, you know, uh, very unrighteous about that situation, but it is what it is. And what I was gonna say too, even from this Greek philosopher Xenophanes, who pointed out about with gods, and he was basically he was like, if the cows, and I'm kind of somewhat paraphrasing this quote, he was like, if the cows or the chickens or the horses, dealt with deities or God, their God would look like a horse, a cow, or this and that. So basically what he was saying is that, what I'm saying, like the ancient peoples had to be black, and so were the gods in some kind of way, because look at the way they depicted the ancient, gods. Look at the, from the wide noses of the Olmecs, who, predates the Aztecs and the Mayans, you know what I'm saying, which are kind of almost like the children of, Atlanteans and Lemurians in essence. But when you look at all these artifacts, or you look at the fact that they got to knock off the noses of like the Sphinx and all these different things, which the Sphinx has another name that I gotta remember to I'll make a video about it as soon as I get the name again. But it had a different name, just like Africa had a different name before it was Africa. You know what I'm saying? And I always bring up, which all these things, that's why it's better to go further back to ancient names and things, because the more ancient you get, the closer you get to the vibration of, you know, how can I say, the vibration of language that we truly dealt with, which we honestly dealt with, or deal with really, telepathy without no spoken word, but, it's a whole nother story. But, yeah, with the Greek philosopher Xenophanes, he basically came up with that conclusion, like, all right, well, just looking at the way, people depict the gods, and through observation, like, if these gods are depicted as, looking like melanated black people, then these are the ancient peoples and gods. And again, I always like to remind my melanated people that don't mean beat on your chest, no, but it does mean to realize, the truth of your, your history and heritage, or your DNA, your indigenous culture, you know. But basically, that's where, you get the depictions of these guys. And also you got different little information, which I researched this, and I got to get deeper, because when you dealing with getting information from somebody who's trying to oppress you, and which it varies, because you got some people like a serial killer, you know what I'm saying? Where even though they the oppressor, so even though they're trying to kill you, they'll still give you a chance and leave you little clues or this and that, kind of like the movie Saw, where he gonna kill y'all. You set up for death, but he wanna watch you try to get out of it and all this, you know what I'm saying? Same thing with the oppressor, where they'll give you some truth and some information, you know, just playing the game, because even though they don't want you to really have this, they'll give it to you, because, they're like, shit, we'll overload them with information so they won't know what's right, you know what I'm saying? But I came across like the information about in the Old Testament, where Moses first met Jehovah during his journey with the Midianites. And the Midianites were said to be Ethiopian, but when you look up like the little surface research, they're gonna try to make it seem like the Midianites came from not the Ethiopia part, but Saudi Arabia part, which, be real with you, back in those ancient times of Kush, because I just told you that the Kush Empire stretched to India, that Saudi Arabia area would be that area too. But I digress, But again, I didn't find the information going deep into explaining it, but just looking at, from what I saw, I see how it correlates, but I'm still doing some extra research on that. But it's just in linguistics, like when you start to learn linguistics and break down like all these different words, then you get to the origins of what things truly mean. You know what I'm saying? Breaking down Jesus into Yeshua, and then yeah, uh, or Yeshu. You know what I'm saying? Because matter of fact, I remember Santos Bonacci talking about yes or yeah, like meaning the sun. And shoe meaning like air. Shoe like the God shoe. You know what I'm saying? In between Newton or Newton Jeb, however you like to see it, the sky, the firmament, and the earth, the ground, and you had shoe in between the air. And then back to some of the a few more names of some of these Mayan and Aztec gods, where you had another Mayan god named Chak, which was known as the god of thunder. And you could also see that as Shango, or you could also see that as Thor, you know what I'm saying, with the Greek situation, because Chop from the Mayan pantheon, he carried an axe that represented thunder, and then Thor carried the big hammer thing that represented thunder. So you see how the stories, and we all know that by default, not only through timing, that the Mayan civilization existed before Norse mythology, but then you look at genetics. You know what I'm saying? What comes first? Melanated beings produce all other beings on this planet. You know what I'm saying? I say all other beings. All other what people like to call ethnicities. You know what I'm saying? So if the Mayans would call in, a god Chak, the god of thunder, represented thunder, and then you had the Yoruba, just another ancient spiritual practice. You had Shango dealing with like, this is all ancient things that was borrowed from, So when you see this new movie, Ring the Rock or whatever, I forgot how to pronounce it with with Marvel. Basically, you're starting to see how more of these Marvel stories getting more and more like telling ancient god stories, like Wonder Woman dealing with how, women, used to run things. That was like the Incan and Leah story. Like Incan and Leah was running away from being rude. And I say being rude, but they were being governed by some female gods, because the female gods were allowing them to in essence, till the land on earth. You know what I'm saying? Like basically, I let y'all work earth. Y'all make sure y'all send us the resources y'all need to send us, and we good. But then Ankin and Lil kind of, start getting into their own little fuss with creating humans and this and that, and the female guys come to check on them, and then bam, it became a little situation from there. Matter of fact, getting back to where we're at with the divine feminine moving back in. But you just start to see all the correlations across the board. Cuckoo kind. Cuckoo kind? I'm gonna say it right. Kulkan. But basically another Mayan god, which is basically, you could say, directly, related to the Aztec Quetzalcoatl, because Kukulkan is a feathered serpent. But he's even also deeper. Kukulkan was a god of agriculture, medicine, the code of law, and also the god of resurrection. And being a feathered serpent, and being the god of all those things, it sounds familiar. It sounds like Emotep, the god of, arithmetic, medicine, the father of all that, you know what I'm saying, which the Greeks try to later give to Hermes, or like, well, which Hermes is actually taught, but and they try to give to like Pythagoras and Euclid, whatever Euclid or whatever his name is, the Euclid or something like that. But they try to give credit to to those guys for all the the math that came from the mystery schools of dealing with Emotep. And again, back to the lies and deception is like, if you're trying to be so truthful and if you're really searching for the truth, then why are you just stopping at this information right here, knowing that ancient information existed before, Greek and Roman information? Why would you stop right there unless you had like maybe a agenda or maybe, like, I don't know, some type of reason. Because when we all searching for the truth, we go deep. You know what I'm saying? Like when you find out water was H2O, like, all right, what the H stand for, what the two stand for, what the O stand for, you know, hydrogen. What is that? You know what I'm saying? Like, you always go deeper. But to say it's like, oh, Hermes started this and Euclid and Pythagoras started this and that's it. That's a wrap. Like, it doesn't go any deeper or farther than that. And you start to see like the also like because there's another thing, again, just using the word racism for lack of a better word, but I like to use oppression. The oppression of melanated people, but it's just that trying to hide information. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, knowing that it goes deeper, but people stopping. And I also tell people, and I'm calling people out like straight up, like, well, if you're dealing with somebody and they claim or act to be smart, like, I researched this knowledge, I researched that knowledge, but then they just always seem to like can't pass Rome. It's like that's the oldest thing, you know. If it smell like fish and it got scales and it that bubbles out his mouth, then it's probably a fish. And it's probably, a rotten fish at that. Don't smell good. But when people, it gets to a certain point, like, all right, I'm only gonna allow people to be so ignorant as far as like, all right, because again, it's a mixture. People really are that ignorant to information, but then it comes a point where, all right, if you call yourself researching and you know a little bit something, it's more past Rome, but then you keep Rome, then that's obviously saying something, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got some type of loyalty or something towards, that, and you're not trying to push your information further. Because that's why also, with the Bible being like 2,000 years old, and that's why like they try to make civilization seem like it's so young, because they don't want you to know that melanated people existed on the planet like thousands and probably close to millions of years. Numbers and is just to put in close proximity, but time doesn't exist. We're just kind of using it somewhat as a reference, but these things are so ancient, because then you got the Sphinx again with water erosion on it. I repeat, something in the Sahara Desert, biggest desert in the world, with water erosion on it, at the bottom of it, with water erosion that dates back to about at least 10,000 years ago. And 10,000 years ago outdates the Holy Bible and the Quran. It's like, and all these things, like even down to like, and with all these religions, I tell people, you just got to be open minded, because here it is, like with me, I tell anybody, like, well, say for instance, with the Hindu or the Hare Krishna consciousness, well, and everybody a little different with how they deal with their spirituality, but in most cases though, when you hear some of those yogis speak, and it's like, it could only come from this line of information, and only these yogis could give you, and it's like, but here it is that I'm not a part of, those line of yogis, but yet I'm putting down valuable information that could be used for spirituality. So you see, just the facts within your face that kind of proves that to be a lie. Like, all right, only our yogis and only our, people pass down. And it's like, nah, especially when, this information was passed down to you from a different people's, let alone, the gods that you claim that they were passed down through. And don't get it twisted. That's not to say that the energy of Krishna and Ganesha is not strong and real. Like those are real energies. You know what I'm saying? Like matter of fact, because again, going tracing things back, Ganesha has is the embodiment of Ishu or Elegua. Or Papa Legba. Opening doors or removing obstacles. You know what I'm saying? Is more particular dealing with Ganesha. But you start to see how all these things correlate across the board. So, you know, with all the different religions, it's not necessarily, none of them are necessarily wrong. They just kind of become wrong whenever they say, here, this is my religion. This is the end all be all. If you don't worship and read this, how we worship and read this, you're probably not gonna connect with God, and you're probably not gonna make it to heaven, or you're probably not gonna achieve bliss or prana, or you're not gonna achieve zazen or mu and all these different, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it's like, it's time for spiritual practice to evolve and become more open minded and see, like, all right, we claiming that information could only be passed down by these yogis. Like, say for instance, was Nikola Tesla a yogi? Was he a Hindu yogi of practice? But I'd be damn, lack of a better word, I'd be damn if he didn't put out information from the higher planes that you could obviously see that was coming from higher planes. But he didn't get anointed by Yogananda Paramahansa or none of those guys. And two, you start to realize though that religions are just being extremists on certain truths. You know what I'm saying? So it is true that source, gods, deities, and certain consciousness pass down information to man. But it is not true that God only passes down information to man within this religion. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, all right, now you're trying to be particular and loyal to your culture and your religion, and you're not keeping it open minded and keeping it real about what's really going on. So again, like I say, just being open minded and being real. We're moving towards being truthful and real, like and it. No righteousness, no real growth comes out of embracing lies. You know what I'm saying? Like, what growth comes out of ignoring that Uncle so and so touched on the little niece or nephew, or you know what I'm saying? In that same example, I feel like same thing with ignoring lies or